Welcome back, Blade fans. This old sword is with you once again, and let me introduce you to what I am deeming my Grail fixed blade of the year 2022. And the funny thing is, I didn't even know it was going to be my Grail knife. Usually a Grail knife is something you're going after, you're seeking. Well, I have been considering this particular fixed blade for quite a while, and it is the Bastinelli Assaucalypse, and it's an odd name. It is the new knife, the new fixed blade knife, I understand, that was designed for some of the French special tactical units. And I read that somewhere. I couldn't find it again prior to this review to validate that fact, but this checks all the boxes for me. And normally I'm not a finger groove kind of fixed blade knife guy, but wow, does this fit the hand so perfectly. You get your trigger finger in there, and it's very much like getting your finger on the trigger of a fine firearm. I'm going to back out a little bit and just turn the heat on in the good old basement studio here for the first time. It's late December, a couple days after Christmas. I guess we can consider this a Christmas gift to myself. Look at that fantastic, Bob DeMarco called it a sax style blade, and it does sort of hearken to the sax style of blade, except it's got a bit of a belly, a broad gradual belly there. Reason I'm calling this a 2022 Grail fixed blade is that I believe it may have been introduced earlier this year in M390. It was originally out in the in D2, and by the way, this is the Bastinelli Assaucalypse Compact. There was originally a 7.5-inch blade in D2, so this has been remade somewhat with this texture on here, kind of a 3D milling on the G10. Removable handle scales with a very nice see-through hex system here, not Torx but Allen wrench. You can remove those and remove the scales. And I'm going to say it's skeletonized underneath, even though I haven't taken the scales off. We'll do the measurements in a moment, but let me show you the sheath. Pretty much plain. Did come with a Tech-Lock style belt mount. I haven't put that on yet. He puts it in the box and you can either use it or not. The thing I'll comment about most Bastinelli sheaths, Kydex sheaths, is it's a fairly thin Kydex. But then again, the blades aren't particularly beefy. I think they're just about right to keep the knife slicey, and let me tell you, there's no rattle, and it's a tight fit. I wish he had given a little more of a push off here, although I can nudge it off. It grips these textured handles quite strongly, right about there, and probably part of that guard. You've got a beautiful sharpening choil, certainly not a finger choil, and we have a significant fuller going the full length right out to the clip. So we could easily call this a clip point. You could say that it's got some overtones of a Bowie knife to it. The end result is that we've got a beautiful point right on line with the center of the handle. The blade curves upward slightly, but again, that point is still on a line with the handle. Got a lanyard provision down below in the steel, beautifully crowned over all the way around, as we see on many Bastinelli knives, and yet we've got jimping that really definitely works. You can lay your thumb right in there. It's exactly where I like it to be for my style of gripping, and it can also be used in a point down grip very easily. Although you don't have any cutting edge on the inside, you do have a cutting edge on the outside. But for this position with a 5.5 inch blade, it's about as long as I'd want to go for point down. And for the most part, point down works best with like a 3 to 4 inch blade. And you see that on a lot of the Elvia style Libre fighting blades. Not on this one. This is really designed more for a hammer grip, point or edge out, point up grip. At the same time, it can make a really good utility knife. But let's get some specs on it first, and then I'm going to show you some other comparisons here. So, overall length of the knife is 10 3/4 inches. Blade length, if we go right to the handle, is a bit longer than I expected. It's about 5 3/4, not quite 6, and just a little over a 5.5 inch cutting edge. Handle thickness, let's see, it's a contoured handle, which makes it feel even better. At its thickest point right here, it's 0.74 inches. In the blade stock, 0.14, which means that we've got 3.5 millimeters. Not particularly thick, but for a fixed blade knife, but the cool thing is that makes it much more slicey, particularly with that high grind. Let's get a weight on this guy, and then we'll take another look around. And of course the scale likes to wander, so we're going to zero it out. There we go. So what we've got is almost an 8-ounce blade, 7.98. For all the world, we could just call it an 8-ounce blade. I'll round it up in the specs. Handles so well. You really have to get this in the hand to appreciate it. Much taller than some other Bastinelli fixed blades that I have, which tend to be a little narrower. And that makes the handle a little taller too. So what we've got here is 1 3/4 inches height on that blade, and the handle at the widest point, if I go there, is about 1.25 inches. I complain when a handle's too skinny. If it's narrow, that's okay, but if it's also not too tall, I don't feel like I really have enough to hold on to. But this just melts into the hand, and Bastian Coves does just such a great job with what he calls his tactical art. And again, you can see that beautiful crowned spine on the blade. We got a shadow box effect, so to speak, for the handles, which means that we've got the steel tang standing proud of the handles all the way around. From a production point of view, that makes it a little easier so that they don't need to grind each handle slab down to meet the surface of the handle. And you'll see this on a lot of production fixed blades. Now, there is the marking. You can see it. Lion steel, made in Italy, M390. It's both gorgeous and useful. I mean, I can see this being used in an outdoor scenario, a camp scenario. I'd be a little careful, although it's not a super fine point. It is a thinner point, but that is designed for human targets. Let's face it. okay? But you can cut line, cord, cardboard, shave wood, whatever you want to do with this. It is extremely high and slicey, and let's check that out. So I've got my requisite piece of computer paper here, printer paper, and probably could use a little honing. I'd call it sharp enough for the size of the knife. I don't think I've stropped that yet. But a fairly fine edge given the 3.5 millimeter blade stock and that high grind. Definitely piercy as well. Will definitely get the job done. And again, when you get a blade, the factory edges can sometimes be wonderful and sometimes can use just a little bit of care. So the first thing I do is go to the leather strop, which this hasn't seen yet. If that doesn't work, we go to ceramic, and usually that does the job following the original bevel. Now, interesting thing about the edge here, it is a convex edge. Okay, so we do have kind of an apple seed grind, is what I think the American Bladesmith Society calls it. It's hard to see it. The light the way it is here looks like it's just a standard bevel, but let's see if I can, how close I can get. And get the light on it just right. So you can see that, it broadens there, and that's the gradual incline, that convex, not concave, but convex. So flat grind on the blade and convex tapering down to the edge. Similar to an axe, similar to what they call an apple seed grind, as I said. Let's do some comparisons to some of my other favorites in the Bastinelli line, and I've got about 14 of them in the collection, I believe. Here's the Silence Slim. Smaller overall by a good 2 inches, with a blade about 1.5 inches shorter, maybe. As you can see, it's a slender blade. There's a little less to hang on to here, but it's a little more discreet, it's a little more concealable, even though it's got a fairly long blade. And here's one that compares very favorably to the Assaucalypse. This is the Raptor L. And you're going to see that the Raptor L is just about the same overall length. And we got a blade, again, just about the same overall length. It's falling maybe 1/4 inch shorter. But notice that it's a much slimmer blade. Similar handle contour. If you look at where the finger grooves are, very, very similar. And even this placement for the thumb here. And you can't see them from here almost, but you've got a very nice run of jimping, and you've got jimping way out at the tip in case you wanted to use this for delicate work. And I think that's the only jimping on this one. This is also M390. I'm thinking of N690. M390. And again, that's an upgrade from the original as well. Now, this was the knife used in the movie Lucy, made famous by the movie Lucy, where she carried a pair of those. And I guess if we could compare it to a better known fixed blade, small one. There's the Street Beat by Spyderco. Definitely a much larger knife than the Street Beat. The Street Beat's a 3.5-inch pocketable, concealable blade, and the Assaucalypse is not. And further comparison, just for the heck of it, there's your Griptilian. Again, significantly smaller, but a folding pocket knife of about 3.5 inches or so. So yeah, I am extremely happy with the knife. It melts into my hand. It feels very comfortable. It's going to carry well. I'm not sure how much carry time I'm going to get out of it. I think it would work extremely well by mounting it in a shoulder type rig, and we've got 3 grommets right there. By the way, taco style sheath, tunnel on the top. I think it's going to do very well either hanging like that, very solid. I might adjust the tension, but I think it's going to break in a bit on its own, a few times in and out of the Kydex. Then again, the tech lock could go on there, horizontal carry, belt loop could go through there. I've got most of the hardware. I've got DCC clips and Ulti clips and so on and so forth. So it's just a matter of trial and error and seeing how it carries the most comfortable. Appendix carry, small the back, shoulder carry, what have you. But there you have it, and let's make our parting shot, one with the blade showing for sure. There it is. Bastinelli Assaucalypse, my favorite fixed blade of the year. As a user, as eye candy, as everything. So they're not cheap. They're going to come in somewhere in the $350 neighborhood. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes with Bastinelli. They're a little higher priced. But this one came to me from White Mountain Knives. So if you use my discount code OLDSWORD, you can get 10% off of that. Take care. Be well. Don't forget to give this video a like. Many thanks.